The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly as Maria pushed her mop cart down the gleaming corridor of the aerospace research facility. It was just past 9 p.m., the building quiet except for the echo of voices behind the glass wall of Lab 7. Inside, a team of engineers circled a monstrous metallic engine, their frustration thick in the air. Terms like catastrophic misfire, budget overrun, and project failure ricocheted through the room. No one noticed Maria. No one ever did. She paused outside the door, pretending to rearrange her cleaning supplies, but really she was listening. The rhythm of the engine sputter filtered through the crack in the glass. Her brow furrowed. There was something familiar in that rhythm, something she hadn't heard in decades, back when her hands were covered in grease and she could tear down a jet engine blindfolded. She tilted her head, studying the vibration in the floor beneath her boots. "Third valve's off," she muttered, almost to herself. It was just a whisper, swallowed by the hum of machines and her own humility. She glanced around, then kept mopping, letting the thought sit heavy in her mind like a secret. Inside the lab, a young engineer threw his clipboard down. "It doesn't make sense," he said. "We've tried everything." The team was so close to scrapping the entire project. Maria moved on, her back straight, eyes forward, but her heart stirred. She knew what was wrong. And she knew they'd never ask her. After all, she was just the janitor. Maria's apartment was small, quiet, and filled with echoes of a life once filled with promise. After her shift, she kicked off her shoes and made a cup of chamomile tea, her joints aching from hours of pushing a mop cart across concrete floors. The TV flickered in the background, some late-night show, but she wasn't watching. Her eyes were drawn instead to the old wooden box tucked beneath the window. She hadn't opened it in years. Hands trembling slightly, she lifted the lid. Inside were pieces of her past, a faded certificate from an elite aerospace mechanic program, grease-stained notebooks full of sketches and calculations, and a few yellowed letters from NASA recruiters, unanswered. Life had demanded other things. When her father got sick, she'd left school to care for him. When her son was born prematurely, she worked double shifts to afford his treatments. The dreams she once had were buried under bills, diapers, and duty. She unfolded one of the letters and read it again. "We were impressed with your aptitude," it said. "We believe you have the potential to lead." A soft smile touched her lips, half pride, half sadness. Then she reached for a fresh notebook and, from memory, began sketching the engine she had seen at the lab. Line by line, detail by detail. The sputtering rhythm still echoed in her mind. Her fingers moved instinctively, solving a puzzle no one else could. Maybe it wasn't too late to do something that mattered. The sun had barely risen when Maria arrived at the facility the next morning, her uniform freshly pressed, mop cart in hand. The corridors were silent, bathed in the pale glow of early light. She moved with purpose, not toward the usual cleaning zones, but straight to Lab 7. The security badge she wore, meant only for janitorial access, wouldn't open the lab's main door. But the maintenance hatch? That was a different story. Inside, the prototype engine sat like a sleeping giant, cold and still. Maria moved carefully, respectfully. She knew this kind of machine, had once built them with calloused hands and a fire in her chest. She pulled on a pair of old gloves she'd brought from home, knelt beside the engine, and gently pried open a panel near the base. There it was, the third valve assembly. Misaligned. Slightly off-center. A mistake small enough to miss with software, but massive in its consequences. She adjusted it using her own tools, humming softly, steadying her breath. The overhead door creaked. A voice, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" It was the lead engineer, sleep-deprived and startled. Maria stood, slowly, wiping her hands on a rag. "Just cleaning," she said calmly. "Try it now." The engineer hesitated, then powered up the system. The engine rumbled to life, steady and strong, no misfire, no sputter. Perfect. He turned to her, stunned. How did you? But Maria was already walking out, mop in hand, heart pounding. She hadn't come for credit. She came because she could help. By mid-morning, the facility was buzzing. Word had spread fast, someone had fixed the engine. Not just patched it, but solved the core issue that had stumped senior engineers for weeks. The team gathered in the conference room, staring at diagnostic reports that now showed full operational status. Coffee cup sat forgotten as disbelief turned to curiosity. Who had done it? Then someone pointed to the security footage. The room fell silent as they watched Maria. Uniformed, quiet, steady, kneeling beside the engine, hands moving with a precision and calm that none of them had. The lead engineer, still processing what he'd witnessed, stood and said, "Bring her in." Maria entered, hesitant. She clutched her hands in front of her, surrounded now by people who had barely looked at her before. The room waited. She didn't gloat. She simply explained, in clear, direct terms, the flaw she'd spotted and how she'd fixed it. Her voice was soft, but sure. There was a long pause. Then one of the engineers clapped. Another followed. Soon, the room erupted into applause, not polite, but genuine, almost stunned. "We want to offer you a position on the team," someone said. But Maria shook her head gently. "I'm not looking for titles," she replied. "But I would like something else." She looked up, eyes kind but firm. "Give me a classroom. Let me teach the ones no one sees." It wasn't recognition she wanted. It was a chance to lift others who, like her, had been overlooked for far too long. In the heart of the city's vocational training center, the garage echoed with the clink of tools and the low murmur of determination. Maria stood beside a young woman tightening bolts on a crankshaft, guiding her hands with gentle, confident motions. The classroom had become more than a place to learn, it was a sanctuary for second chances. Each student carried their own story, dropped out, overlooked, underestimated. But here, they were builders, creators, mechanics of their own futures. Maria moved from station to station, answering questions, nodding encouragement, sharing quiet wisdom only years of experience and struggle could teach. She never lectured, she demonstrated. She listened. She believed in them until they began believing in themselves. On the back wall, framed in glass, was the now famous photo. A gleaming prototype engine, worth over $2 million, once broken and baffling the brightest minds, until a janitor fixed it. Beneath it, a quote etched in brass, "Greatness has nothing to do with job titles." That afternoon, a small ceremony took place. Students lined up in oil-stained coveralls, diplomas in hand. Parents watched with teary eyes. A school official stepped forward to thank Maria for her impact, for inspiring a program that now had a waiting list longer than any in the city. Maria didn't take the mic. She didn't need to. Instead, she placed a hand on the shoulder of a young man who once doubted he could finish high school. "You're next," she whispered. And just like that, the spark passed forward, quiet, powerful, unstoppable.